Evening, boys and girls. This is Wednesday night with a Pidge. If you really are staying up to watch this, thank you very, very much. All I'm going to say is my main topic is basically going to talk about the life and times of Glenn Roeder, who sadly passed away about a week and a half ago. I think it was on the Sunday, so it's about a week and a half ago now. Pretty much his era during his time at Watford. And anything else you want to add, or if you met Glenn Roeder, any memories from those? Well, I think two of them were not really that memorable. The 94-95 season, which I'm actually watching now on YouTube. I'm just watching the Millwall game. I think we played away and we lost 2-1. Where I think we actually missed a penalty. I think Rambo missed a penalty, which doesn't usually happen with him. But that was sort of like mid-season in 94-95, but he came. I mean, he already played for us, and I think the compensation package was with Southend. I think it was about 30 grand or something after Perryman left, and he didn't really make an impact. I mean, he was damn sight better than Colin Lee, but Stevie Wonder could have made a better fist of the Watford job than Colin Lee could. What a useless lump he was. I mean, people slaughtered Steve Harrison, but I would have had Harrison in charge at that stage in 1990 because we just couldn't win a game under Colin Lee. But then obviously Perryman came in and Roeder came in back to the club, because I think I'm looking at it here, and I did say this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that he was FA Cup captain for QPR, I think back in 83, 82, 83. And he's a bit of a Newcastle legend as well. He made almost 200 appearances for them, made over 150 appearances for QPR. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I best knew him before he played for Watford for his Newcastle stint, because he had great things to say about Gascoigne, when Gascoigne was on his way up and just before he went to Spurs. But he played 78 times for the Hornets and scored 2 goals. The one that I said a couple of weeks ago was actually a diving header against West Brom. I thought it was against Swindon. It was actually the West Brom one, where it was actually done in front of the... Vialli was our worst manager. Yeah. I mean, for the want of getting this club down, I mean, but Colin Lee's record was woeful. He won 2 games in half a season, Stuart. But I know what you mean, mate. In terms of the overall picture, yeah, probably you are right, mate. Vialli was absolutely horrendous, and he almost basically took this club down. So, Ray, it was fantastic guy. I watched your podcast, mate. So excellent. Just remember, guys and girls, just before my Wednesday night podcast, obviously, if we haven't got a match day with Watford, tune into Sir Ray's Cook Report at 7 till 8, and then I'm straight on at 8 o'clock. So, get onto his personal profile every Wednesday and lock horns with everyone else. And there was quite a good debate today, I think, with the I'm not going to dwell on too much about it, because they already talked in discussion on Ray's podcast, but he was talking about the Meghan interview. I haven't actually watched it yet, but I've got my own opinion on everything that's been surrounding it. But like I say, I'm not going to dwell on it, but if you get any of you guys want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to shout it out. But yeah, going back to Roeder, he made 78 appearances for us and scored 2 goals. Like I say, the one that I was on about was the West Brom one. He came back, and I've already said he came from Southend. He had his big managerial break at Southend. Came to, I mean, hi Daniel. When he came to us, his philosophy really, especially being, the defensive player that he was, we did try and make us play good football. And, when he came in 93, okay, we were attacking force, we were excellent. It's just at the back we were just leaking goals. It was a complete reverse in the second season when we finished 7th. We just couldn't find the back of the net, but yet we were keeping clean sheets almost every game. I think we were on a club record of, 10 clean sheets in a row as well under Roder in 94, 95. And, he built a side. I think a lot of the signings were made. I think most of them were made the season before. I think he made the astute signings that I think Pidge for once actually got out his wallet and gave him a bit of money. And it pretty much saved the club because we would have got relegated that season. We were just horrendous at the back, and I think we let in 80 goals. I think scored about 63. So for a side that was probably a game or so away from getting relegated, it was weren't a bad achievement because you don't really associate teams struggling with goals, and we scored our fair few. I mean, we scored nearly as many of those goals the season after when we were, I think, about 3 points away from the playoffs. But our promotion bid died around Portsmouth time when we lost. I think it was like 2-1, I think. And I think, scoring the goals was the problem. I think we had Shipley on that 94, 95. I think he tried every single... I mean, he must have loaned about 3 or 4 players. I remember Mick Quinn came for a bit, well overweight. He wasn't the same player he was, say, 3 seasons ago for Coventry. He was a complete waste of time. He certainly wasn't the player who was at Newcastle, where he was one hell of a player. And any Newcastle fans out there will probably testify to this because he was a good player at Newcastle. He wasn't a bad player at Coventry. He was just completely overweight when he came to us. I think we signed Nigel Jempson. Neil Shipley scored a goal. I think his one was against Portsmouth at home. He's if you ever get on YouTube as well, go on Under the Cosh, because there's a lot of other ones. You've got Warren Vine, you've got Andrew Johnson. He's on my Facebook. He's absolutely amazing. I've actually messaged him as well. And you got Andrew Johnson's one. Not the bald-headed striker who played for Palace. It was a central midfielder for West Brom. You go on to Under the Cosh on YouTube and check out his interview. It's absolutely amazing. It's literally drunk stories about him getting pissed after time on international duty and so forth. And it's an absolutely brilliant interview. I think the other one that came close to that is probably his mate Tank, Alan Rogers, who played, I think he's right back for Forest. He was his partner in crime at Forest. You watch that one and also Warren Vine's one, because Vine just says to him, look, we're going a completely other direction. You do what I say. And he just went off on one with all his stories. So, yeah, excellent. Ray saying we won 2-1 at Middlesbrough, cracking 30-yarder. Yeah. The 30-yarder one, who scored that again? Because it was from his left foot. He cut inside and scored. Not Faulkner. It wasn't David Byrne, was it? Cookie? Because I think, it was 2-1. I didn't actually go to that. I was about 10 at the time. I didn't go to that one, but I might have been at the West Brom one when Roder scored. Stuart Higgins saying, Glenn steadied a sinking ship, fabulous player and a decent manager. Yeah, I mean, Stuart, mate, I completely agree, because he needed the first season, Perryman came to sort of steady it. Didn't really get promoted where he hoped he would. He was coming to us thinking, make a few changes, we'll probably get promoted. It didn't work. Roder came in, and to be honest, it was probably our best. He played our best football since probably when Taylor left. To be fair, that 94-95 side, obviously everyone knows a certain player was playing in that team. But I'll tell you what, I remember. That's why I remember Roder fondly, was for that 94-95 team, which has got some of my favourite all-time players. You've got Miller in goal. You had the likes of Baisley, Porter, Holdsworth. You had the holy trinity of Holdsworth, Millen, and Foster, or the original Fozzie. You got Foster now, but the original Fozzie was Colin Foster. He came from Forest. You had Essenthaler, Jono, really, really young Richard Johnson. I think he really established himself in the team that season. Oh, Gerard Lavin at right back. He was our mainstay at the right back. Who else did we have? Tommy Mooney, obviously Rambo, which was probably, people say it's biased, was our standout player in that team. And I think he scored 15 goals for midfield. He played beyond the striker. That was more memorable as well. We were chucking everyone forward, trying different formations and different people up front. We even had Darren Baisley up front, and he scored a hat-trick out of Southend as well. I remember that. And I think they kept him up front for the Swindon FA Cup game, where I think Hesse had a habit of, I think it was the league game and the FA Cup game where Hesse scored both of the goals. And I think I met Hesse with if Moobs is watching this as well, we both went over to Watford for a book signing, and Lord Leventhal was there with Hesse. And I was going to ask Hesse anyway, and I said to him, did it really hit your hand? Because from where I saw it from the top of the North Stand, it didn't actually hit his hand. It looked like it more hit his arm, and then he smashed it in. He says, "No, it didn't hit me hand, mate. It didn't." So a lot of people always used to argue with me with that. I mean, they weren't even Watford fans anyway, and they didn't even go to the game, so they probably didn't know that anyway. But yeah, he was another one. Who else did we have? Obviously, we had the free loan signings, but they didn't really stand out too much. Obviously, Jamie Morley. I think there was a lot of bad luck that season. He wasn't great, but I think he was the season that really defined him as one of our all-time worst players was probably the season after, where he was either injured or he just couldn't score. He was freaking useless. The start of the 94-95 season, he was he just had a bit of luck. He was just unlucky, to be honest. I'm watching this now. Yeah, it wasn't 3-0. It was actually 4-0, and Baisley scored the hat-trick. It's just come up now. And the emergence as well, I was just about to say this, emergence of Kevin Phillips. And this is a tale from what, hello, Adam, Jackie are both on as well. Thank you very much. There's another tale that Kevin Phillips says Roda actually owed him, he owes his career to Roda, because when he signed him for about, I think it was 10,000 from Baldock. I think we got Beadle for $5,000 and we got Phillips for about 10-15 grand from Baldock Town. And his dad passed away I think it's just after he signed him, and he was going to give up football, and Roda sort of sat him down and sort of like put his arm around him, sort of more a father figure to him at the start, and he persuaded him to carry on playing. And like I said, Phillips is, if you go on interviews and you hear the little snippets when he does talk about Roda, he does owe him a career because he kept him going. He says if he didn't carry on playing, we never knew where he would be. So he like I said already, he owes his career to Roda for sort of, putting his arm around him and telling him, look, stick with it. You're going to make it. Your dad will obviously want you to become a professional. So, and as everyone's seen, you look at Kevin Phillips' goal scoring record. I think his season with us, I think he only got introduced around, when was it? I think it was Reading. I think his first debut goal for us was at Reading, and I think he scored about, 9 goals out of 16 games, end of the season. Complete emergency. I mean, even Peter Beadle actually scored as well. I think he scored in the Charlton game, like a second from last game of the season, because the last 2 games are like home games. We had so many cancelled because of bad weather. And I'm looking at it now, was the Burnley game, and the pitch back then. I mean, people never know the struggle, especially younger fans that see all these pitches now, Premier League pitches and in Championship pitches. They absolutely look like bowling greens, especially Watford's, who I think a couple of seasons ago won pitch, I think, Groundsman of the Year, completely deserved, because it's absolutely amazing. And they look at the pitches now, and back then, and I'm looking at it now, and you see that they were basically sand pits a lot of the times. And I actually remember that game against Burnley where we beat them 2-0, and I think it was even worse against Swindon. It was just absolute mud bath. I think a couple of games later, I think when we played Swindon in the league, the cup game was when it was really boggy. We played Swindon in the league, and it was like like I said already, like a sandpit, because it's just back then. I mean, you haven't got the technology and the advanced stuff you do now, you have now, and back then you just put sand on it. And I don't know how that's another testament to Roda. I don't know how we managed to try to play football on that pitch. But we managed to do it. And I've seen a lot of teams. I think the third season when we did get relegated, and obviously Taylor came in after Roda left off. I think we got beaten 4-0 at Palace, when I think Palace it was one of the period where Palace were going up, down every season. And I think that was the only season where we, you can really say that under Roda we didn't really play that much football. But having 70 and the 95-96 season came with a lot of promise and optimism. And I think I remember it as I think it was it sprightly 14, 15-year-old. You know, we a lot of, I mean, a kid back then, you know, you sort of looking at it and say you finish seventh, and you should really, you know, you near the playoffs. Are we going to get promoted? And I thought, being, you know, 14, 15-year-old, this is great. We're going to get promoted. We might get promoted. We might sneak into the playoffs. But the horrendous injury list. I think a lot of Watford fans were looking at last season's this season's injury list, and we highlighted it on my podcast that we had about 15, 16 players out injured. I mean, back then in 95, 96, we had about 17, 18 players injured, and you basically, yeah, I will shout that out, Stuart, as well, mate. No, good shout. And we had about, let's say, 17, 18 players out injured, and they were literally the reserve team. I think Stuart Murdoch was in charge of the reserve team because you had Kenny Sampson along with him. I think Kenny Sampson came out of retirement to play. I think Murdoch brought in half his mates, and it was just ridiculous because half of them are not signed. I don't think half of them were signed on. I think if they were literally on reserve contracts, and they were just dragging people off the street. It was that bad. So, of course, any side, no matter how good you are, was going to struggle. So I think I put a lot down that season to the injury list, because the season before we didn't have much injuries. We had a good few injuries the season before where we did struggle. But like I say, the benefit of the doubt, even though it really hurt back then when I was about 14, 15 when we got relegated, it was down to you're looking at fresh eyes now, and it was just because we didn't have a squad. You know, once we had 4 or 5 players injured, it was bad. But when we had about 15, 16, it was just absolutely horrendous. Right, okay, just before I go on a lighter note, yeah, well done, Luther. I've messaged him as well, Stuart, mate. Luther Blissett getting the freedom of the town. Yeah, and he says, you, sir, are a credit. Yeah, no, Luther's deserved so far. I mean, people have got my opinions on the ambassadors. Was it group? They've got the new ambassadors thing at the football club, which in truth, you know, everyone who's actually been put into that ambassador's role is completely deserved. But I just think they could have saved all that time making up a new sort of group where they could have just latched onto the former players club, which incidentally is run by Luther, and also FA Cup left back, FA Cup 1984 FA Cup left back for Watford, Neil Price as well. We've honoured to have already had both of them at least once on our podcast as well, and they both pretty much run that. They've got many other ex-players from Watford signed on to that. Also, Rita Taylor is endorsed it as well. So you got God's wife as well. Rita Taylor, I'm very pleased to say I'm on first name terms with Rita, and she's lovely lady. Met her a few times. Sadly, it was after Graham passed away, but I met Graham 4 or 5 times and never met Rita. But I've very honoured to have had the pleasure of meeting Rita a few times. So yeah, so she's endorsing the former players club. So if you want to get on board with that, it's on Facebook, and you just type in former players club. I'll put up the banner anyway. So if you want to take that down, and yeah, if you're not on already, share much love for Luther Pricey and the boys on the former players club. It's coming up now. So it's www.facebook.com/tailor-made players. So you get over to that. That's got a whole load of former players on there, endorsed by many people, like I say, including Rita Taylor. They'll do few live meetups and podcasts, and you obviously get your memories, and yeah, just basically do a lot for the community. They're setting up a lot of things in the pipeline coming up, which I haven't been told of yet, but I know there's things that are in the like I say, once again, in the pipeline. So just keep tuned into their former players club at facebook.com/tailor-made players. Yeah, so once again, Luther, well done, mate. Freedom of Watford Town. So yeah, about time, I think. Watford's favourite son, Watford's favourite number 8, or legendary number 8, shall we say, Luther Blissett. So yeah, like I say, I've pretty much summed up most of the era under Roda. The first season we had the goal scorers. You had Bruce. You had a very, very young Bruce Dyer. He's on my Facebook as well. So if he's watching, hi Bruce. You had an 18-year-old Bruce Dyer. He went to Palace for, I think, most expensive teenager at the time. I think before Lee Bowyer obviously moved clubs, he went for about $1 million. I think a record signing that stood for a long, long time was actually Paul Furlong, who went to Chelsea. I thought it was about 2.6 million, but their signings, but their sales pretty much paid for our north and south stands. So obviously, being now the north stand was the ex-home end, and the Rookery, which is the south stand now. I think the first one was built in 93, 94, and 95, 96 saw the erection of the sort of Rookery end. So that obviously eventually, all Watford fans, we all know, eventually eventually went to a home end. I think it was back in 99, 2000. I think GT said, look, it's logical that we put all the home fans in the Rookery end because it holds about 7,000. The North Stand I think holds about 5. So, we were selling out the North Stand pretty much most games, or coming near it for obviously the big games. So, like I said, it made perfect sense going into the Premier League. Pack more home fans into one area. Hopefully, the atmosphere will be a bit better as well. And certainly back then, you couldn't legislate for the atmosphere. The fans gave everything, just like the players under GT. Right, Ray Cook, Holdsworth, Millen, Foster, great centre backs. Tell you what, that's the second Holy Trinity. Barry Ashby's on my Tottenham fan, by the way. Don't fault him; he's a Tottenham fan. But Barry Ashby, ex-Watford, ex-Gillingham, amongst other teams. I think most known for Gillingham. Obviously, I remember him at Watford. You had the Keith Dublin, Holdsworth, and Barry Ashby Holy Trinity, as I call defensive Trinity. And the second one was, I think, fun enough, the season after we got obviously weren't too holy because we got rid of 2 of them, and we got 2 experienced heads in Millen and Foster, which, like I said, wielded 10 clean sheets in a row and a club record. So. Yeah, so I've got it up now. We got the Wolves game. It was when Taylor took Wolves to the playoffs. Anyone got any memories? If you did you actually go to that game? Because I didn't actually go to that game back in 94, 95. It was when Phillips scored one of his first goals. I actually saying the first goal, it's probably his 5th goal. It was there, went under the legs of Stow. I think Jeff Thomas was back when Jeff Thomas, he was just former England player, because of all his injuries. But I tell you what, I would love Jeff Thomas in that midfield alongside Essenthaler. That's another one. Derek Payne, a good friend of mine at Hemel, Payney, or Fred West, as I used to call him. He's another one from the midfield. So, back then you had that midfield. You could have had that midfield 3 of Hesse, Payney. You had Rambo ahead of him. You had Jono as well. So I think Roda liked to operate sort of probably people shoot me down now, but probably you could either have a 4-4-2, but he also used wing backs. He was very fond of wing backs at Watford, and it seemed to work for us. Jason Solomon and Drysdale, yes. Drysdale went the season before 94, 95, mate, as I believe. I think Jason Solomon was still with us in 94, 95. Yeah, Drysdale went, I think, didn't he go to Newcastle, Jason Drysdale, Cookie? I think I heard he definitely signed for him one time, but he was a good left back, or a good wing back anyway. And I was a bit gutted he left, actually, because I think we had Porter at left wing back, and I think the likes of Lavin and Baisley on the right, and that would have been a good foil for if obviously Porter. We were lucky Porter didn't have many injuries that season. But if Porter got injured, then Jason Drysdale would have been a good one. Jason Solomon, I think, I'll tell you what, fun enough, I think, was it Jason Solomon that actually came to one of our, when I was a junior Hornet, came to a soccer school thing. And that's when I first met Rambo and Payney. They both came to it. And I think Jason Solomon was sort of getting stuck, and he was doing a bit of the coaching. So that was quite an eye-opener. You get a Watford, current, I think it was ex-Watford player back then, but he was a ex-Watford player, so that was quite an eye-opener being coached by him, and obviously meeting my favourite player that I never met before. So not many times get stage fright, but it was when I met Payney and Rambo. That was a bit of a surprise because we weren't expecting any players coming to the soccer school. So when that was came up. That was quite a good surprise. Yeah, Gerard Lavin. I mean, I will promise you, Ray, I will get him on one of our podcasts. We were very, very close just before COVID. I think a couple of months before COVID. So I will actually get him on one of our podcasts. And yeah, I bet he's got some stories to tell. I want to really pick his brains as well, mate, because that's another thing. 95, 96, I think it was just after the Luton home game where we drew 1-1 with them, or shall I say Harpenden Town reserves. We drew 1-1. I think it was Phillips who scored, and we always got that really dubious penalty. And Ian Foyer, who, funny enough, is also on my Facebook. So if he's watching this, he saved it, and I've even asked him about it. And I told him what Rambo said in the interview, where he said his head was nearly touching the crossbar, and he got a fingertip to it and tipped it onto the post. And that was the final game, I believe, that Gerard Lavin played for us before he went to Millwall. And Millwall at the time, under Mick McCarthy, and I think Mick McCarthy signed him, and they were, I think, 5 or 6 points clear at the top in December. We played them and beat them 2-1. And this is when Paul Wilkinson came back on loan. And that was another thing. For some reason, I don't know why they could not have stretched out the budget to get Paul Wilkinson, because I honestly thought we would have stayed up. We got more of a chance of staying up that season if Pidge had pulled out his checkbook and actually let him sign Paul Wilkinson, because Wilco, when he left, had a decent finish, because he came from Borough. I think he went to Barnsley and got promoted, or he was close, I know that, and scored a few goals for I've scored a few goals for Barnsley. And I remember, and thankfully, I've actually chatted to him. We went on. I was honoured to go on to Luther's first. He went on to one of his watch-alongs, and Paul Wilkinson was on there. And I said to him, "You're always known for your heading prowess." I mean, he scored a few decent goals with his foot, but he was always known for being a very good header of the ball. And yeah, like I said, once again, we should have signed him, because we would have stayed up. But yeah, Lavin, he went to Millwall, and you explain this. Like I say, we beat them I think it was December, straight after the Norwich game, when we lost 2-0, when Martin O'Neill was, fun enough, in charge of Norwich before we went to Leicester. And he went there, we beat them, and they got relegated. So you explain that, because I think the only way I could possibly explain it is the league was so tight that season. If we went on a run at that point of about 4 or 5 games, we would have been looking at the playoffs. It was that weird that season. And Millwall, I think, won 2 games after that in that whole, because I think Mick McCarthy then went to Ireland. So I think Jack Charlton retired. He took over the Ireland job. And I don't know who took over the Millwall job, but it was horrendous, because for them it was. They got relegated on the final day. I think they lost their final game of the season away, and they lost. I know we went down. We got beaten by Leicester, which if anyone was there, I think I was in the family stand with that one. It was Devon White headed it across, and Muzzy Izzet on loan from Chelsea, and what a player he turned out to be for Leicester. He headed it in, but I think it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because I think Portsmouth won, so we went down anyway. But yeah, I'd love to get Gerard on, and I'll probably message him soon and say, look, explain what happened at Millwall, because I couldn't put my finger on it. I don't know what happened there, how the hell a team 6 points clear of one division could get relegated in half a season. Don't ask me, really, seriously. Right. Okay, I'm going off in a minute, but I will see all of you on, shall we say, Friday night. Myself and the young man will be previewing the game on Saturday against Cardiff, a 3 o'clock kickoff. So we'll be taking all your opinions from TaylorMade Army Forum, TMA TV, YouTube, and this my personal profile. So just before I say any more plugs, just a massive, massive thank you for anyone who stayed awake long enough to watch the entire half an hour. Not many, so any of you have done, you have earned a medal, put it that way. So I'll put anyone to sleep. Right, okay, so once again, Ray Cook's Cook Report, usually on every Wednesday night, 7 till 8, and then obviously I'm on straight after it at 8 till 8:30. And he does also, I like to shout out Ray, because he's done a lot of podcasts for me recently, and he's obviously with me. Very proud to have him with me on The Verdict. This Saturday, anyone who's watched it last Saturday, we are getting the rather glamorous Katie Ellicott on after the international break. So she's not going to be on Saturday, but it'll be me, the gruesome twosome, me and Sir Ray doing the fans' verdict. That's after the game. It's about 7 o'clock. But yeah, we'll be previewing on Friday night. Me and the young man, we're previewing the game in the Championship against Cardiff, which is going to be one hell of a humdinger. And I've already mentioned Mick McCarthy is subsequently actually the manager of Cardiff, and they're on a bit of a run. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a really good game, but we need to really keep up the winning winning mentality. So hopefully I'll elaborate a bit more on that on Friday night. So I'm working on a guest. If not, I'll try to get one on Sunday night. So as regards Ray's podcast, like I say, he's on 7 till 8 every Wednesday. He does halftime podcasts as well on his personal profile. Sometimes sneaks one on Saturday. If he doesn't do one on Saturday, you'll see him about midday on Sunday. Only reason I do that is, one, I plug it and he plugs my shows, and also I do his graphics, so I know when he's on usually. So that's the only reason why I know he's on. But we will share it on the Tailor-Made Army forum. So Sir Ray during the weekend. So Stuart, cheers, mate. Can't even remember what date my birthday is. Yeah, no, to be honest, I'm starting to forget, mate. I'm hitting 40 this year. I obviously don't look 40, but I'm going to hit 40, sadly. So I'm getting old, mate. The kids make me feel old. Right, okay, I'm going to shoot off now, guys and girls. But like I say, once again, thank you ever so much. And once again, I'll see you Friday night. If I don't see you Friday night, I'll see you every Wednesday. If we don't have a game for Watford, 8 till 8:30. So for me, good night, and see you guys soon.